we should get started. Welcome everyone to Steps to Success's second Educational Equity Society Forum. My name is Kenny Weill and I'm a STEPS board member. Before we get started, I just want to let you know a couple little housekeeping things. One is that we are recording this session, but it seems like you guys all look your best, but if you feel like you don't want to be recorded, you can shut your camera down. If you're not speaking, I would just ask that you mute yourself. There'll be time later for some questions and answers. So for those of you less familiar, STEPS is a Brookline-based nonprofit organization that works to close the opportunity gap for children from low-income families. STEPS provides out-of-school time and enrichment programming for over 300 students every year, from fourth grade all the way through college graduation. And what this means is they work with each individual student beginning in fourth grade, and then again follows them and works with them through middle school and high school and even college, and sometimes beyond. It could be a 13-year relationship. All STEPS programs are free of charge, including after-school enrichment, access to summer camps, career and college readiness, and college enrollment and retention. So I joined the STEPS board a couple of years ago because I already knew about the organization and I knew how really successful they were. Actually, I didn't know quite how successful they were. It turns out that while only 16% of low-income students nationwide are on track to graduate college within 8 years, 95% of STEPS participants are on track to graduate within 4 to 6 years, which is pretty unbelievable. And I've worked in my consulting business, I've worked with over 100 nonprofits, and I can say with confidence that few, if any, have yielded those kinds of outcomes. And I believe the success has everything to do with STEP's unique model, both its close working relationship with the public school district and the housing authority, and its long-term investment in our students. So what has this taught us? With sufficient long-term support and equitable access to resources, essentially a level playing field, students from low-income families are capable of academic success on par with those from higher-income families. So these forums are an opportunity for STEPS supporters to get together and learn more about the issues that we care about in our community, such as educational equity. Tonight, you'll hear from 3 incredible STEPS to Success alumni who will reflect on their own educational journeys through the Brookline Public Schools and higher education, their participation in STEPS along the way, and their current roles in society. After hearing from our presenters, there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. Once again, on behalf of the forum's host committee, I'm thrilled you could join us this evening. So now I'll turn it over to Shoma Haque, Executive Director of STEPS to Success, who will introduce today's panelists.
Thank you, Kenny. Hello, I'm Shoma Haque. It's so nice to see so many familiar and new faces here tonight. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I'm so pleased to be introducing our speakers tonight. We're really fortunate to be able to bring together 3 amazing STEPS to Success alumni who are going to share their stories and highlight their careers with you. I'm going to introduce them all and then ask each one to speak in turn. Emy Takinami is currently the Director of Policy and Community Organizing at Zero Debt, Massachusetts. She's organizing those most impacted by the student debt crisis and advocating such that anyone can graduate from college debt-free. Prior to joining the team at ZDM, Emy was at Boston University, where she obtained her dual master's degree in macro social work and educational leadership and policy studies. Before BU, I had the pleasure of working with Emy when she was our College Success Initiative advisor at Steps to Success. She is a proud Steps to Success alum, and now she's my boss as part of the Steps to Success Board of Directors. Sophia Celeste Vos is currently the Strategic Partnerships Manager at Innovare, a social enterprise focused on improving education to accelerate social change. She was a Fulbright Scholar in Mexico City, where she also served as a cultural ambassador for the U.S. Diplomatic Mission and International Project Manager at New Ventures, Mexico's leading social enterprise incubator. She's a polyglot, speaking Spanish, French, Italian, and is now learning Arabic. Sophia graduated from American University and holds an MBA certificate from Mexico's ITAM and the Norwegian School of Economics. Sophia is also a board member of Steps to Success. Craig Alejandro Morgan grew up in Brookline and attended the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth as an undergraduate and received his master's degree in English from Boston University. Currently, Craig is the 8th grade English teacher at the Fessenden School in Newton, Mass, and he's also the 9th grade dean. And in his spare time, he's also the facilitator for Fessenden's upper school affinity group called Voice, an affinity space for boys of African descent. So now that you know a little bit about our amazing speakers, I'll turn it over to them and let them share their stories with you, starting with Emy Takinami. Amy.
Thanks, Shoma, and hi, everyone. It's so great to see, like Shoma said, so many new and familiar faces in the Zoom room tonight. My name is Emy Takinami, and I'm so excited to get to be here with you all and share a bit more about my own educational and professional journey and the huge role that Steps to Success, or SDS, has played and continues to play in that journey and in my life to this day. So Steps entered my life in the 9th grade when I was transitioning to Brookline High School from the Florida Ruffin Ridley School, still getting used to saying that, where I attended the kindergarten through 8th grade there. The transition to high school was difficult for me and my family, but not just for the usual difficulties you would expect for a young person beginning their high school journey. I lost my mom to cancer during my first year of high school, and due to my dad's deteriorating mental health, he lost his job and therefore our ability to afford rent in Brookline. We were lucky enough to find immediate housing through the Brookline Housing Authority, which allowed my family to continue living here and allowed my younger brother and I to continue attending school here. It felt like immediately after my dad signed the lease with the BHA that an advisor from Steps reached out to me and my family. The Steps advisor made sure I knew that they were available to me and my family for everything from day-to-day homework support to access to paid internships, summer camps, college application help, and more. I definitely didn't utilize all that Steps had to offer throughout my 4 years of high school due to other support systems that I was lucky enough to have around me at the time. But I always felt like I could go to Steps, to the office, to my advisor for anything I needed or had questions about. The mere presence of this huge support system during this time was a ginormous relief to my family. Looking back, one of the biggest ways Steps helped shape my future was through their paid summer internship program. While all of my friends were landing unpaid internships that they could afford to take at fancy law firms and hospitals that their parents either worked at or had connections to, I felt extremely limited in my own opportunities in comparison. I couldn't afford to take on an unpaid internship all summer due to the need to support myself and my family, but it was also hard for me to find meaningful paid work that would pad my resume in the same way my peers were able to. Luckily, Steps offered paid summer internships to their high school students in areas all across the spectrum, from landscaping to work at nearby hospitals. The first summer I participated in Steps' summer internship program, I was placed as an assistant teacher in a summer literacy program at Brookline High School for elementary school students, where I would say my passion for working in the field of education was spurred. Getting to be an assistant teacher all summer made me realize I wasn't interested in teaching necessarily because teaching looked really hard, but in working to solve some of the bigger picture questions in education, like why certain demographics of students were needing additional literacy support while others weren't. I was able to have enlightening and challenging conversations early in my career with my supervisors and my coworkers around the opportunity gap and issues around classism, racism, and how these systems intersect with public education. None of this would have been possible without the opportunity that Steps provided through their paid summer internship program. My second summer internship placement through Steps was at the Brookline Senior Center, where I gained an interest in the field of psych, which is what I would ultimately go on to major in college. Although I was initially set on continuing my summer work at the literacy program, my advisor at the time recommended and encouraged that I try something new, and I'm so glad that I took his advice. I had the chance to participate in all sorts of activities that summer, from working at the front desk and fielding calls to leading a Zumba class for seniors. Little did I know then that my experience working at the Brookline Senior Center would be a huge reason I'd be able to land a paid first-year research assistantship in undergrad, because not many people had relevant paid work experience at that point in their careers, which only opened up more and more opportunities for me in the future. Again, all opportunities that would not have been accessible to me without the support of Steps. Another big area where I sought out and utilized Steps' support was through their College Success Initiative program, which helped me both apply to college, matriculate to college in the fall after my senior year of high school, and graduate from college over the course of 4 years. The CSI program supported me in a lot of ways, but the most tangible way was through supporting me and my dad in filling out the FAFSA, or the Federal College Financial Aid application. As a first-generation to college student with an immigrant single father who does not speak or read very much English, I don't think I would have been able to navigate the complicated college financial aid system without the support of STEPS. My STEPS advisors not only supported me and my dad in filling out the FAFSA during my senior year of high school, but also made sure to follow up with us every year to refill it out to ensure I continued to be qualified for financial aid for all 4 years of college. After graduating from college in 2016 with a dual major in psych and gender studies, I was looking for work in the field of education with a special interest in working with young people. Due to the great relationship I had with my CSI advisor, who I see in the room, Tony, although I had technically graduated from college and was no longer a part of the CSI program, we stayed in touch, and he was continuing to support me in my job search. One of the many positions he ended up sharing with me was an opening to be his colleague as a CSI advisor at Steps to Success. I had never planned or expected to return to Steps as an employee, but after receiving and reviewing the job description from Tony, it seemed like a perfect fit. I'd be working in the field of ed equity, getting to work one-to-one with young people in college. I applied, and the rest is really history. I worked at Steps for 2 years as a CSI advisor, where I got to work closely with my caseload of 40 CSI students, who were for the most part all first-gen, low-income students of color. During those 2 years, it became evident to me, and what I knew to be true from my own personal lived experience as a first-gen college student, that the higher ed system was not set up for our students to succeed. As much as I enjoyed building relationships with my students and supporting them through academic, social, and financial challenges, I knew that the problem would not be fixed on a one-to-one basis through advising, although I still think the work of student advising is crucial. Therefore, I was motivated to apply to grad school with the hope to someday work at the systemic level, helping to fix these broken higher ed institutions and systems. I ended up attending BU, where I obtained my dual master's degrees in macro social work and ed policy and leadership studies last May. Although I ended up leaving my CSI advisor position back in 2018, I knew I didn't want to lose touch with STEPS as a whole. So I transitioned from being a staff member to a board member, where I still serve today. In addition to being on the STEPS board, today I'm helping to start up a new nonprofit in Boston called Zero Debt Massachusetts, where I currently serve as the Director of Policy and Community Organizing. Our mission at ZDM is to win a zero debt future in Massachusetts, where any student may graduate from college or university without the burden of student loan debt. After doing some reflection and preparing these thoughts for you all today, it's clear to me, and I hope all of you, that STEPS has played a huge role in shaping my values, relationships, and educational and professional trajectory. I'm so grateful that I've been a part of STEPS in so many various ways, as a student, staff member, and now board member. And I truly look forward to giving back in any way I can to the organization that has done so much to shape me into the person I am today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. You can unmute and applaud if you'd like. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Amy. That was awesome. So now we would love to hear from you, Craig.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Yes. All right. Thank you, Shoma, for the introduction. Amy, salute to you. You know, go way back, go way back. So my name is Craig Morgan. I actually have been a part of the STEPS program since even before high school. I grew up since 4th grade. I went to Lincoln School in Brookline, and then eventually transitioned into Brookline High School along with the rest of my friends. So my relationship with STEPS is it's a funny one. It's really difficult because if I were to tell you guys that I was some straight A honor roll student, that I did everything that STEPS advised me to do, I'll be lying to you. I was a knucklehead, if I'm being honest. I gave my STEPS advisors some headaches. But the thing about STEPS that I think resonates with me the most is that there was never a moment where I didn't feel like they didn't have my back. I come from single mother household. My sister and I grew up. My sister went to Boston public schools instead, but STEPS really kind of became that second home base for me. The base where I can go and talk to somebody if I was having issues, whether it had to be school related or personal related. Steps really wanted to see me succeed despite all the headaches I probably gave them. I think the biggest thing for me that Steps did help me with was it helped give me a purpose, I feel. And what I mean by purpose is it helped me see that there were many people trying to give back to this community, this One Big Steps community. And I'm always that kind of person who I reflect on that. And I always wanted to give back, but I never knew what I was capable of giving back. I'm that kind of person who's like, I didn't know I was capable of this. In fact, if you asked me 15, 16 years ago, I'd probably say I don't even deserve a seat at the table. But the people there, especially Ramon De Jesus, who's not a Steps, but he was when I was there, he really pushed me to see what I was capable of. He sat me down with college applications, which I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think I was even capable of going to college at that point in time. I know that it was an option for me, but I didn't think it was an option that I would be willing to take. And he sat with me and he went through all of those emotional moments with me when I'm saying like, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if, because I didn't think school was my thing. And he really looked at me and said, one day you're going to look back at this and say like, man, like I was going through it, but you're going to feel like you've done something so amazing once this is all over. That's what he said to me. And then I showed him love back by not going to class the very next period. That was just where I was in high school. I'm not sugarcoating anything, but once I graduated, I remember sitting down with Mr. DJ and he asked me what was wrong. And I was like, I felt like I wasted almost every opportunity that you were trying to give me. And he said, no, you didn't. He's like, this is not once high school's over, you're done. You're not going to see my face again. This is now we're really getting started. I had applied to go to a community school right after Steps. And during that process, that was kind of where I started to really figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I would go back to Mr. DJ every single month just to check in with him, like, hey, Mr. DJ, I made the dean's list. Like, what you think of that? Like, and he's like, I knew you could do it. There was never a doubt in my mind that you could do it. So, and this is where I'm starting to tell you guys a story that's going to come full circle. Trust me, we'll get there. Mr. DJ really looked out for me, but it was also his last year at Steps. So for his last years at Step, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go apply for a 4-year college just after my first year at the community school. I went to Mass Bay Community College. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I did apply to a 4-year and I ended up getting into a few universities, but the university I chose to attend was University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. I was so excited with Mr. DJ, like, hey, like, I'm just like, I got this. He's like, you're going to do fine. You're going to do well. And we have another advisor that's going to come because now I was in the College Success Initiative program. He's like, we got another advisor coming through and he's going to look out for you. Trust me, you're going to be fine. Thanked him for everything. And I went to UMass Dartmouth where I majored in English. And that was my mission. I didn't know what I was going to do with English, but I was like, I'm going to get a degree in English. And it's going to look nice when I put it up on my mother's wall, right? That was the goal. So that's when I met Tony, who's also on the call. Tony became the CSI advisor for me, and I had no idea who he was, but he just showed up at UMass Dartmouth one day and was like, hey, I'm at the Wendy's. Would you like to meet and talk? And I said, sure, why not? Let's talk. So I sat down with Tony. We got to know each other, and something that I kept thinking about that whole time, Tony, and I know I didn't tell you this, and now you're hearing this. One thing I kept on thinking was like, for everything that this program has given me, for everything that Mr. DJ taught me, how am I gonna give back to the people under me? At that point in time, I really viewed myself as like a middle child, kind of like I'm like the bridge between like the youngins that are gonna be coming up soon, and like I still have to learn so much from the people above me. And so Tony worked with me and he, started connected me with some of the younger boys that were coming up from steps that were going to UMass Dartmouth, help them out, get work studies, help them out with like, when it comes to choosing classes, giving them advice, selling tours. So I was like, that's a great way to give back. That's nice. So it became like a community. There was a nice large steps community who went to UMass Dartmouth, and we became like we looked out for each other. It was like a family kind of bond, and it was never like anything awkward or anything like that. It was really wholesome, and I appreciated that time there at UMass Dartmouth. But as with everything, time goes on and it comes to an end. I graduated UMass Dartmouth. I almost made high honors. I was this close, but that's okay. I got my degree. That was what the goal was. And then it's like, now what? Now what do I do? I had this degree in English. I have no idea what I want to do with it. I felt like I really wanted to do something with education, but I was like, I don't even know how to get my foot in the door. And so I actually ended up taking a corporate job. I ended up working for a corporate company for communications. I'm not going to blast that company because I did not have a good experience there. But I worked for that company for about a year. And I remember sitting every year, they give you like a promotion. You sit at a meeting and they say, hey, what team do you want to work on next year and all that. I don't recommend anyone do this, but I sat at that meeting and I looked at my bosses and I said, I want to go back to school. And they thought, well, you want to go to school, grad school for communications? Okay, we have great programs with paper. And I was like, no. I want to go back to school. I'm quitting. I said that at the final meeting of the year. And they looked at me, I was like, I'm leaving. Had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I was leaving. And I went home and I actually messaged another advisor of me, Onita Horn. She's not with Steps anymore, but she was with Steps at that time. And I messaged her and I was like, I need to get my foot in the door somewhere. And she's like, well, why don't you go to grad school for education? I'm like, well, how do I do that? Well, connections are a funny thing. She ended up connecting me with someone who ran the Shady Hill program. So the Shady Hill program is a school in Cambridge where people go. It's a teacher training program. You can go to grad school at the same time, get all your teaching hours done, your assistant teaching hours done. And I did that for a whole year. And this is where the full circle moment comes. One of the weeks at Shady Hill, they had a guest speaker come. They had like a guest speaker come in, like to help students or help the future teachers navigate the hiring world and whatnot. And my director wanted to introduce me to this man that was going to do the speaking. And I looked at the back of his head and I recognized him. But I didn't want to say anything. So she pokes him and she goes like, I want you to meet Mr. Ramon de Jesus. So my old College Success Initiative teacher was giving the lecture that I was supposed to attend that day. And he turned around and before she even finished introducing me, he hugged me. It was like a surreal moment where I'm just like, this really came full circle. And he said, so you want to be a teacher now, huh? And I was like, well, you know what? If you guys can handle my knucklehead butt, I'm pretty sure I can handle everybody else. And it was one of those moments that I don't think I'll ever forget. And, me and him caught up. We got coffee later. And really that was just a surreal moment for me. And now I currently work at the Newton Private School District. I work for President's School. I am a grade 8 teacher, English teacher, and I'm also a grade 9 dean. I work with the boys, the African-American boys. We created an affinity group called Voice, in which they can be their best selves, their authentic selves. And we also do Black education. But I'm also working on the DEI board now, which is the DEI board is basically I'm trying to make education more accessible for students of different backgrounds, make it more so that inclusive, and to make sure that it's purposeful and not just, oh, well, we have to do this Heritage Month. Like, no, 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 it should be purposeful. It should be intentional. You got to do this work because these boys need it. Right. And I feel like now at this point in my life, I'm truly giving back now. You know, I am that playing that middle child role where I'm still learning. I'm still young enough to learn, but I got these young people depending on me. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I have a couple knuckleheads. Maybe they'll have that first full circle moment with me one day where they look back and say, you know what? I should have took advantage of everything you've given me. But you know what? That's what it's about. So that's the story of me.
Fantastic. I love the full circle. You think your 16-year-old self is thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I became a teacher.
My 23-year-old self can't believe I became a teacher.
Well, thank you. And with that, I will now turn over the Zoom to Sophia.
Okay, thank you, Shoma, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Craig and Amy, for sharing too. And yeah, it's a real pleasure for me to be here with each of you today. And I see some familiar faces from our board meetings and from other places, and some new people as well. So thank you for having me. My name is Sophia Celeste Vos. I graduated from Brookline High School as a Steps to Success student in 2015. And then I graduated from my undergraduate program in 2019. So I have been involved with STEPS since my freshman year of high school, at which point I was brought into the STEPS room by my friends who had had longer engagements with STEPS than I had. I was another low-income freshman student at Brookline High School. I was also from a single-parent household, and I actually was not part of the Brookline Public Housing Network. And so I was a student that could have fallen through the cracks in the sense of receiving support from an organization like STEPS, but it was really because of other STEPS students who I had become friends with, who brought me in the door because they loved STEPS. And so STEPS was a home for them, and then quickly for me in school. And I would say that today, STEPS has really significantly affected my outcomes in my life, as well as my personal character. So much so that I really don't wish that I had a different situation when I was growing up or when I was in high school that would have removed me from being a part of a community like STEPS. I'm really glad actually that I was a student who was in need of STEPS support, because I think that because of STEPS, I'm so much better for it. And when I was in high school, I think the three ways that STEPS really supported me the most were, first of all, as a home base. The STEPS room on the first floor was, at that point in time, it was also it was at times unmonitored. So we had a lot of fun in that room. I did my homework there in homework club and beyond, and I have great memories in the STEPS room with my friends from when I was a sophomore in high school. And STEPS was really that ground zero for my educational experience, particularly in a school where not every teacher, not every peer was prepared to interact well, perhaps, or be supportive of lower income students. And so STEPS really was that home for us. And it was very well connected as well with the African American and Latino Scholars Program that I was a part of, as well as the METCO program. And so even in an unofficial capacity, because not all students were a part of all three programs, of course, there was that support and sense of family amongst everyone. And that really was hugely beneficial to me and remains hugely beneficial to me. A lot of the friends that I met through STEPS are still some of my closest friends to this day. I would say the second way that STEPS was really, really supportive to me as a high schooler was that it really the STEPS staff were excellent advocates for STEPS students within the larger school ecosystem. Um, because STEP students had unique challenges within Brookline Public Schools, and STEPS staff was just so well prepared to deal with those challenges and to advocate for STEP students within the larger educational ecosystem, as well as the housing ecosystem, right? That really provided me the adults that I needed at the time to show up for me in ways that really made huge differences. They were the people who would make the important hard calls to this teacher or that administrator or this lunch person or this after school program in ways that I wasn't necessarily prepared to always do as a high school student. And I needed those capable, supportive adults to be supportive in that way that I may not have had without STEPS's support. And that really, I think, in some ways helped STEP students kind of be pushed to the top in Brookline High School if they were able to, because a lot of students were working with guidance counselors who had hundreds and hundreds of students. And because a lot of STEP students could be overlooked by those guidance counselors as less, maybe were considered to be like less capable in certain ways. It was easy to be overlooked, but because of the adults in the STEPS program, we had such great advocates that it was the opposite. And I benefited from that hugely. And I think that the third way that STEPS really supported me as a high school student is that it really prepared me to be a leader. And that's what I mean when I say that STEPS impacted my personal character, not just my educational or career outcomes. It also impacted my personal character. I was encouraged and required at times to like be a mentor for younger students, for middle schoolers, for other people within our community. I was encouraged to step up and be a leader in ways that a lot of high schoolers were not always accepted to do. I actually remember interviewing Tony for his current role when I was in high school myself. So STEP students were really brought into the fold to be trained as leaders in a way that was unique. And in a way that was significant and certainly even better than what other students in the Brookline Public Schools were experiencing. STEP students were encouraged to be leaders from the earliest possible age, right? I went to Michigan with STEPS. I traveled on a plane halfway across the country with other STEP students. I think maybe more than once to attend youth conferences on leadership, youth conferences on addressing the achievement and opportunity gaps. We presented to the Brookline Superintendent's Office on our plans and our outcomes. I mean, we were really encouraged to be leaders, and that stayed with me and stays with me to this day. I also remember just more tangibly as well when I was a STEPS junior, really, and it was going to be time to apply to college soon. And I was berated by STEPS employees from early on about my college application process, my college essay, my SAT scores, all of those minute details of the college application process that are very challenging to navigate on your own as a student. And STEP students do not always have those familial connections or adults who can help them with all of those minor details. And STEPS was more than adequate at assisting because, as I said, it was from very early on that we were encouraged to draft our personal essays and prepare for the SAT and learn about what the FAFSA was and how to fill out those very complicated documents. I actually remember I had really good grades in high school, and I wasn't doing very well on the SAT. I was not really cut out for the standardized test in some ways, and I had some learning challenges that made it really hard for me to complete a timed test like that. And I was doing everything I could to do free SAT prep here and there at all these different locations that were just not working. And I remember going to my STEPS advisor, who at the time was Dan Arroyo, and just talking to him about how I didn't know what to do, and all these courses were so expensive, and how am I going to, have all the hard work that I put in for my grades count if my SAT is not working for me, right? And Dan Arroyo, I mean, he took it 100% upon himself, and he made all the calls, and he handled everything, right? The next day or the day after, I was enrolled in a formal 10-week SAT Kaplan course, all expenses paid. The book, he got the books. I mean, he really, and this was not unique to me. It was not unique to me either as like a high achieving STEP student, right? All the students in STEPs were receiving that kind of individualized of support from their advisors, depending on what their needs were and what their unique challenges were. And in the end, I can say that it really made all the difference. And I applied to college, and I applied to many scholarship programs. And yeah, in the end, I was able to attend college with a full ride scholarship to American University. And even members of the STEPS board interviewed me to help me prepare for my scholarship interviews, people who I'd never met before, right? And when I was in college, I had great experiences studying international relations and entrepreneurship, all focused on human rights and global inequality, and how could I use my education to open the doors for others, and tackle some of the social challenges and inequalities that we face both in this country and around the world. And it was STEPS that really prepared me to see myself as capable to tackle those challenges. And you can certainly see it also in Emy and Craig's stories of turning around and using their educational opportunities to give back and create change in the long term. After I graduated college in 2019, I went on to be a Fulbright Scholar and a Princeton and Latin America Fellow. And I was, again, working on challenges around global inequality and migration and access to entrepreneurial opportunities and the social entrepreneurship ecosystems in Latin America and in the United States. And now I work for an educational technology startup that is working to help schools and educational leaders use technology to accelerate education for social change. So I too find myself in the educational space as an adult, right? And I think that that is not unique to just Emy, Craig, and myself. Many STEP students go on to work in education because they are inspired by the opportunities that they've had in education, many of those thanks to STEPs. And not just in education, many STEPS graduates give back in other really unique ways. I mean, many STEPS students who graduated with me are nurses right now on the front lines of the COVID crisis, or working in the classroom, or doing other forms of public service as a part of their career or as a part of their personal life. So that's certainly not unique to the three of us. And I think that it is a testament to STEP's impact, as I mentioned before, not just on our outcomes, but certainly on our educational and career outcomes, but also on our character and on our personal development. And that's why I started this off saying that I really wouldn't change anything that put me in a position to need the support of STEPs, because it was really because of STEPs that I think I'm so much of a better person today. And I've had so many wonderful opportunities because of the STEPs community and advocacy, leadership, and support. So that's my story with STEPs, and thank you all very much.
Rachel.
Thank you so much, Sophia. So nice to hear your story. I don't think I've heard it before. So with that, we're going to spend another 10 minutes or so on questions and answers from the audience. So if you have any questions for Amy, Sophia, Craig, or all three, please put it in the chat and I will direct those questions to them.
You really have a question?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Taking a look at the chat. So I have a question. Sophia, you had mentioned that it's not unusual or unheard of that Steps to Success alumni and college students go into some type of public service or social service. And you mentioned, you know, this isn't necessarily necessarily a question directly to you, but I'd be curious to hear from all of you. You know, what do you think motivates that? And we've noticed that ourselves in surveys that we've done, that Tony's done, that I think over 60% of our alumni are in a social service of some sort, a public service position of some sort. It's rather unusual compared to the general population. Amy and Craig, do you have anything else to add to that?
I can add something to that. I think, and it mainly I speak specifically from an I perspective. Like, I feel like giving back is probably something that's been embedded in the Steps to Success program. Like, it's been something that's been so prevalent for like years. Like, we always hear about, you know, who can you mentor? Like, I was always getting told to partner up with this person and partner up with that person, reach out to this kid. Or when I was in Steps, like, oh, we have this person who is working in, back then it was like, I wanted to be like in the marketing field. We have this student who is in school for marketing right now. Why don't you link up? Why don't you guys just, you know, have a chat or something like that? So I think it's one of those things that it almost becomes expected. Like, that's what you should do, is give back. What's the point of like obtaining all this knowledge, everything that we've done, if I can't give it back to the people that are coming up under me? There may be another teacher out there that I could link up, or another future teacher out there that I can link up with and say, you know, these are the steps that I took. You don't have to take these steps, but this is how you can prepare yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
And just to add on to that, I think from my personal experience of the internship placements and just partnerships that Steps has, right, in the community, I think they're really intentional about the partnerships they have, the senior center, with summer camps, with literacy camps. So that could be, you know, giving folks the relevant experience. I mean, it sounds obvious, but right, like Steps was beneficial to all of us, and like folks have said, we want to give back. And I also think Steps makes you realize that there are gaps in opportunities and services, right? And kind of similar to what I was saying in my story, like that it helps young people realize that there are a lot of larger systems that are inadequate and aren't helping everyone. And so I see a lot of Steps alum not just going into social services, direct services, but also like doing a lot of, you know, systems changes and structural changes from Sophia and Craig's stories. I mean, Craig is developing a new program for young boys of color because it didn't exist, I'm assuming, at the school, right? And I think the connection there is palpable. Like, we're not just plugging in where we see a gap, but we're also like trying to fix the larger systems and structures that have created those gaps.
Yeah, and just as Amy is saying, not only do we see the larger systems gaps, we experience them, right? And we also are assisted in our experiences with them through a program like STEPS in order to eventually overcome them. And we have been given the leadership training really as being a part of this program that prepares us to not have to sit idly by and watch those systems play out, right? We're instilled with the type of leadership potential that Emy talks about being as an intern, like being a high school freshman intern, right? That's not everybody gets that experience regardless of their socioeconomic standing, right? Those are unique opportunities that allow STEP students to be not just as well prepared as their peers, but sometimes better prepared. And as a result, we have the leadership potential to impact those systems that we've been made aware of and that we see. And we understand that one can change course because we've been our courses have been interrupted, right, by a great program. And I think that that's very inspirational for many of us to see where else can we change course for others as a result.
Great answers. Thank you. Gave me some food for thought. How has this experience or steps of success worked with your families? And there's a specific question, Craig, about your mom's view of steps.
They came to my house. So when we moved to Brookline, I forget who exactly, because that person left that year, but he came to our house for like dinner, and to tell my mom about steps and how everything was gonna go. I was too young at that time because this is elementary school, but as I'm older, I reflect back. I'm like, oh, that's what they were doing. so yeah, that's how involved steps got in with as soon as I got to Brookline. I hadn't even been there a week, I think.
Great, thank you. Sophia and Amy, do you have anything to add to that in terms of interaction with your families? Okay. What advice would you give to current STEP students in high school? Or for those who are debating whether or not college is right for them?
I feel like I'm taking all the questions. I don't want to take all the questions.
I'm sure Sophia and Amy will pipe in too.
All right. Advice I would give is don't shut the doors yourself. Don't shut the door on yourself for something that you don't know. I don't know if college is for everybody. I think that it's another door that opens up more doors, right? But don't shut the door on yourself, because at the end of the day, you never know what you can be or what you can do. If you say tomorrow, I don't think a college is for me. All right, let's talk about it. What do you think is for you? What are your options right now? Like, what is your biggest fear, right? What is your biggest fear? There's emotion behind it. There's reasons behind why people think this, right? So I think the best advice I can give, besides don't close the door on yourself, is really talk it out. Explain, talk to yourself if you have to. Just don't close that opportunity for yourself.
I think what I would add that builds off of what Craig is saying is not just don't close the door on yourself, but open the doors for yourself, right? Because for STEP students, there are a lot of unique doors that they can open that are provided to them through the program, but also a lot of those doors can help lead them on their path to college. And while college may not be for everyone, I think there is something about college that is for everyone. It's not the same for everyone. Everyone can have a different college experience, but for example, as I said, I wasn't a big test taker. I didn't like tests. And so I was worried if I would do well in my 400-person lectures that the whole grade was based on tests, right? Maybe that part of college wasn't really for me, right? But it was definitely worth going because I got to study abroad in you know, 6 different countries and learn different languages and have different amazing experiences that I would never have had if it hadn't been for an educational institution that provided them to me, and for the financial support of that institution. So I think that one thing for STEP students to know is that despite the fact that current high school STEP students are really living in a very different world than the one Amy, Craig, and I lived in, despite the fact that we're really not that different in age than them, they are of a whole new and a different, I mean, they're experiencing their high school through a screen, which is really different than what I got. But I would still say that there are so many unique opportunities that they'll get to experience in college that may not be the ones that they anticipated, right? I didn't know that I would have all those opportunities. I just thought that I was going because that's what I thought I should do. And then when I was there, I realized how many different passions I would have the opportunity and the funding and the support to explore.
I guess the last thing I'd add is that sometimes the relationships and the networks you build in school and outside of school are the end goal, right? Not the actual internship or landing the job. But you never know where you're going to run into your peers or your advisors again in the future, like Craig's story highlighted. You know, me and Tony had a great relationship, not just as you know, advisor and student, but outside of that, which helped me, you know, land the job that really changed my career trajectory and led to where I am today. I'm personally excited to connect with Craig and Sophia after this to learn more about their current work and how we might be able to partner. I think a lot of, you know, upper middle class young people are taught that, right? The importance of relationships and networking in some ways more explicitly potentially from their friends and family and networks. And a lot of historically marginalized communities don't get that directly communicated enough. But as we saw and heard from each other's stories tonight, I think SDS STEPS models that, the importance of relationships and network and long-term nature of all of that. So I'm really, I think it's being, if not explicitly communicated, implicitly through all the ways STEPS folks come back to give back to the community.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question. Craig, what books are your students reading? And are there any favorites right now?
Oh, I revamped the whole reading curriculum. I did. I'm sorry. I threw away Of Mice and Men. I threw away. I threw. I reread All American Boys, which is written by Jason Reynolds, who's one of my favorite current authors, by the way. Jason Reynolds, phenomenal. If you guys haven't picked up one of his books, especially Stamped now, which is the YA version, please pick it up. But they loved All American Boys. I feel like the more relevant the books are to their lives, the better the lessons are going to be and the better the conversations are going to be. So they love All American Boys. Right now, we're actually going into a historical fiction unit where they actually have their own autonomy of deciding which books they want to read. I give them a whole book list of options, and they're going to rank them 1 to 3. And then I'm going to get those books in their hand, and they're going to figure out how do we use this knowledge that the book's giving us, and how does it relate to us in real life. So I'm excited about it. They actually like to read, y'all. I'm so happy.
It's because you're not making them read Of Mice and Men. Sorry to all you English teachers out there. Thank you. That was fantastic. And this is off script, but I just feel like we have to do a shout out to Tony Wells, who's our College Success Initiative Director, who's here.
Yay.
So many stories come back to Tony. So with that, I wanted to thank you all, Craig, Amy, Sophia, for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedules. I really appreciate you all. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. So thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Goodman, our board chair, to wrap up with some final thoughts and say goodnight. Rachel?
Thank you so much. I feel like the one thing missing at my table is a box of Kleenex. You know, I really want to thank our alums Amy, Craig, and Sophia so much for your wonderful presentations. And I just want to invite everyone again to give you guys a wonderful round of applause.
Yeah.
The poise that you showed this evening, I think is truly a testament to the work of STEPS. And it's really an honor to have two of you presently on the board. And maybe at some point, Craig, we'll reel you in. I'd also really like to take this time to thank Shoma Haque, our executive director, and Kenny Weill, Kenny, our development committee chair, for kicking off this evening's forum. And I'd like to thank and acknowledge the members of the board as well as the development committee, because you are such an important part of what we do at STEPS. And of course, I want to thank Tom McGrath, our STEPS Development and Communication Associate, for all the hard work that he puts in and day out, as well as the magic that he's working to make sure that when we do these things, if there are any technological issues or glitches, he's there to make them right. And of course, I'd like to thank everybody here on this call this evening. Those of you who are here for the first time, or folks who were here previously. This is our second STEPS Educational Equity Society event. This is our second forum. We launched the Cs over the summer, and it's just been, tonight is another opportunity where I feel that we've had a chance to learn more about STEPS, what we do through the lens of our alumni. And if you'd like to hear more, I would like to ask Tom if he could put in the chat. Amy was recently interviewed on the Arc of Justice program that Eric Hyatt did, and really gave another interesting and thoughtful opportunity to hear about STEPS and other programs. So I encourage folks to take an opportunity to listen to that. And Craig, I think he offered that if you want to know more about his work, that you could reach out to him. And I didn't put this down before, but I noticed that Janet is here, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that she and Tom did a really lovely interview, which is now up on our website. So don't miss that either. Lastly, don't forget, please mark your calendar that our Step Up celebration is coming this spring. It will be kicked off on the 14th of April, and it will run through May 12th. So with that, again, I want to thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Night.